keep that historical background in our views. And that is what I'm going to, inshallah, try to do that. Hopefully your attention would be with me. This is more a historical discussion about it tonight. And this is where I would like to go back to the early history. In a way, what happened after the events of Saqifa? And what happened that eventually Banu Umayyah came to power in the area known as Sham. You cannot understand what happened in Karbala unless you understand what happened in Sham. And how Sham was basically, controlled by Banu Umayyah from day one. And so just to, give you a brief introduction to it in English before I go to the Urdu part of my discussion, when we look at the history of Islam after the wafat of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Islam was confined to the Arabian Peninsula. It had not moved beyond that. It is only after the era of the Khilafat of the first and second Khalifa, which is known as the era of Futuhat, the era of conquest, where the Khulafa were able to expand the Muslim empire. I'm using the word expanding the Muslim empire. I'm not talking about spreading the religion of Islam. These are two different things. Khulafa were not in the business of spreading Islam. Their mandate and their mission was actually to expand their own, domain as far as the Muslim empire is concerned. For example, if you look at the days of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who came much later, during the days of the fifth Imam. He only lived for 2 years, as far as his Khilafat is concerned. But during his time, he actually wrote a letter to the governor of Fars and the governor of Misr. Remember, Egypt and Iran were the frontier province of the Muslim empire at that time. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who comes much later on, during the days of the fifth Imam, he actually writes to these two governors, asking them a question, that how come we have the control of these two regions for so many decades, but yet they have not become Muslims? And one of the governors responded to him by saying that if they become Muslim, who is going to pay the jizya? What is jizya? Jizya is the tax which was applied on non-Muslim citizens of a Muslim empire. So they were more worried about making sure that their coffers of Baytul Mal is filled up. They were not really interested in bringing these non-Muslims into the fold of Islam. And this is where you have to realize that when we talk about the era of Futuhat, it is more an expansion of the Muslim empire and not necessarily the spread of the faith of Islam. And so you have, for example, Sham was conquered, Egypt was taken over, they occupied Iraq and Fars, and this is how these areas came under the control of the Muslims. Let us go back to the issue of Sham. When we use the term Ash-Sham, these days ask anyone, they will say Sham means Syria. In reality, when we use the term Ash-Sham in history, all the way from the early days till the First World War, just about 100 years ago, this term Sham was not equivalent to what is known as Syria now. It applied to Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and entire Palestine. This very vast, region was known as Sham. Sometimes it is known as the Greater Syria. In Arabic history, they call it Ash-Shamat. So it was not only Syria. Even, I've seen a document when I was writing my own thesis on the modern Middle Eastern history. There was a document where the Consulate General of the United States of America had sent a letter to their own, foreign office here, and this was a Consulate General in